empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Friday night. It is Friday Night Lights here on the Scoop. We're going to talk about a superstar, 5-star defensive tackle who has a lot of Ohio State interests. We're going to talk about kind of the week that was for Ohio State football. Might touch on basketball for about a millisecond and talk about the next week that is coming up for the football program before they jump into spring football. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot of recruiting stuff, a lot of offers going out. We're going to take your questions. So if you guys have those questions, get those fired up in the chat as always. And this is going to be a great show. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel, for liking the content. Click that little bell. If you enjoy these live shows, you'll get a little notification when we go live. We do it generally at night. You know, we try not to go against a basketball game or anything, but this is the time of the year where we are grinding through some film. A lot of big prospects that Ohio State is trying to get to their June camps. A lot of great time to eval. So we appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. That being said, bring in my good friend, Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing great. Lots of things going on, man. It's kind of sometimes it's exciting and very predictable that Larry Johnson would have us in on another 5-star. But this is a kid that I've liked for a while. I've seen him down at IMG for a bit, and now it's nice that the Ohio State interest is reciprocated. So can't wait to talk about it and talk about Buckeyes. 1 week to go until or I guess 2 weeks or 1 week or 10 days or whatever it is until we break and go for spring football. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait for spring ball. What's up? Susu is first in the chat, as always. Appreciate you. Yeah, we're going to break down David Stone's film. He's a 5-star defensive tackle out of IMG, talking to the staff a lot. Staff obviously offered him. He's got offers from the big dogs, Bama, Georgia, Clemson, so it'll be a war to get the kid. But there's nothing, I think, in this entire world that I like more than a devastating defensive tackle, because big, massive, fast pass rushing defensive tackles really are difficult to go against. I think Mike Hall is on that trajectory. If he can stay healthy and play more than 15 to 20 plays this year, I think he could be that guy easily. I think Tyleik is kind of on that same path as well. I think without the road blocks that we had last year, they have much more productive seasons, but they still, 4.5 sacks for Mike Hall in very limited time. If you stretch that out, double his snaps, double his production, he's at 9 sacks. That's an All-American level in today's college football, ladies and gentlemen. So that'd be really good to see. Nevada, what do you think about our current defensive tackle room? Obviously the defensive ends are 2 5-star guys that a lot of people want a little bit more juice out of. But what do you see out of Tyleik and Mike Hall coming into this 2023 season?
Well, Tyleik and Mike Hall both, were battling some issues last year. Mike Hall was battling some injury issues, Tyleik some conditioning issues, and it really limited Larry Johnson's ability to play them, more than, like you said, 10, 15, 20 snaps a game. And that's really a shame because everyone's looking for the next Aaron Donald or, J.J. Watt on the inside, the guy that can have that mismatch, exploit those guards and centers, and create havoc in the middle. And Mike Hall and Tyleik are those guys now. And when you look at the room, if there's one, criticism you can make of Larry Johnson, and you have to look pretty far down the list to criticize Larry, but he does seem to be a little bit defensive end centric, and that's kind of an issue because when you have guys in the middle that are just guys, and I don't want to name names, but there's a lot of guys who were gobbling up snaps last year that were just guys. They were just good enough to be out there. They weren't high impact players, and we really didn't have any viable options beside them. So, I think for Ohio State to get in on a defensive tackle like this is huge. I think it's definitely it underlines the issue of there's just a paucity of great interior defensive linemen and defensive linemen in general, but certainly interior defensive linemen in the state of Ohio. And when you're talking about having to go back to Quinn Pitcock or Tim Anderson or guys like that to really find those dominant defensive I guess you had Big Daddy, but it's just there's just not a lot of them. And I think Ohio State's really made a commitment to the Polynesian connection from the West Coast to try to find those guys. That's what USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, Utah do almost exclusively. But for Ohio State to be in on a guy down there at IMG, smart move, good move for Larry Johnson, and hopefully he can reel him in.
Yeah, you mentioned the Polynesians. I mean, obviously JT, Deanne, Haskell Garrett as a D tackle. We were close on Mateo, so there's some guys that are definitely fitting that bill. Yeah, I agree. I think that we just got to keep, pounding the South, man. The South is where these guys live at. Got to pull a few of them. We pulled a kid from Georgia last year. We got to keep these kids coming. I think the IMG thing is huge. The fact that, we got Carnell Tate. We've gotten a bunch of kids out of IMG. They see Ohio State a lot. They see him on TV a lot. They see how productive our guys are going on to the NFL. They see guys like, the Bosa's, Cam Hayward. They see defensive linemen really dominating, getting paid, mega bucks, drafted high, all of that. It just kind of cascades and waterfalls into making Ohio State a national elite brand that kids are attracted to. Again, when I went to the South Florida Express 7-on-7 tournament a couple weeks ago, those kids all loved Ohio State. They saw me wearing my Buckeye Scoop gear. They all wanted, my Twitter handle. They all wanted my contact info, because they all wanted to, they all want to get recruited by Ohio State. Like all of the young phenoms. And I'm not just talking about J.J. Smith and JoJo. I mean, it was like the kids that are, Malachi Tony, the kids that are in his class that are freshmen, some that haven't popped the way Malachi has yet, but they're guys that are on the come. Because I was walking around with the coaches for the SFE, and they're like, yeah, this kid's the next one. He's the next, Ennis or the next Tate or the next JJ or whatever. So it's kind of cool because those kids see the Buckeye Scoop and they're thinking, oh yeah, I want to be with the Buckeyes. So start promoting me. So I was like, yeah, follow BuckeyeScoop.com. At Buckeye Scoop on Twitter. It's a great way for kids to start getting exposure, doing some good interviews as they get into the camp scene. Appreciate you guys joining us. Eric O'Brien is a new member to start his master's there. Go Bucks. I love that. Daniel, Chuck, Neil, all you guys in here. Appreciate you guys on Friday. Get those questions fired up. We are going to go into the lab, where I know you guys love when we go into the lab. We are going to watch us some David Stone. So David Stone, kid out of IMG, 6'5", about 295, big old boy. Let's see if this pops in. Here we go. I think it's detecting. All right. So it starts off with a bang. And if there's one thing that I know that can change a game, it's blocking a field goal. So our boy right here in the middle. And again, IMG, as you guys know, is a powerhouse. Just absolutely overwhelms the interior of this field goal protection. These guys, again, when you're these guys in red, you're going against probably, three 5-stars in the middle for IMG. So it's a little bit different world. So you get that block, run into the crib. Again, it's some of these guys are just so explosive. Again, sometimes you can't judge the competition because these guys aren't playing great competition. But this is kind of like a Mike Hall move right here. Splits the double, gets an athletic quarterback down because the quarterback sees the pocket collapsing. He has to step up and he still gets a hold of him. Again, great athleticism. O-line probably not great. It's probably not it's not like he's going against a Michigan offensive guard, but you can't judge him for what he's going against. But here, it's nice to see a guy that wins with speed initially, the first rep, one with power the next rep. So here, guard sets inside. Again, the guard's hands are going to get him killed. And you can see he's got leverage. He's got his hands inside, which basically lets him jackknife the guy back into the lap of the quarterback. And again, this is, if you're a quarterback, there's nothing you can do here. I mean, you're getting swallowed up by guys. And again, these guys are probably outmanned on the offensive line, but that's just part of the gig. Daniel Haney, that's a great question. Josh Fry and Zen Mikulski ready to step up at tackle for us? Well, I think they're going to be good. I think that they're going to be fine. I've talked to guys in the Woody Hayes that know a lot more than I do about those two, and they feel really good about him. I think Josh is a superb athlete, great basketball player, hitting 360 dunks, which is for a 6'6", 305-pound kid, that's really good. Zen was kind of a late bloomer. He's getting a lot stronger. And again, you guys got to remember, they're going to be going against Jack Story and JT Tuimoloau every single rep in spring, so they're going to figure it out quick. And if Zen can't handle it, then I think you got to put Donnie there and see if Donnie can do it. Because I think Donnie's our best athlete, Personally, I'd play him at left tackle over Zen. But I think that they like Zen's length and his height, and I think that with Josh and Zen at left and right tackle, they like having those guards that have started a lot of games, and Donnie and Matt kind of on their inside shoulder to help them a little bit if they need it. But I think they're both going to be fine. I know everybody worries about everything, but I think Justin Fry is a really good coach. I think that Justin can help with scheming and making the protections a little bit easier for Zen and Josh, not leaving them out on islands, especially early in the season, and especially against some of the better pass rushers that we'll see against Notre Dame and Michigan. But I think they're going to be fine. I know everybody likes to be worried about everything, and they're not Paris and Dewan, but Paris and Dewan, they were first time starters too, and they had hiccups, and there's always going to be growing pains with first time starters and guys that are just starting to play the position as they kind of feel some things out. But with our offensive skill, I don't worry about our offensive line at all, because I think that we'll be getting rid of the ball quick, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to cover our skill guys. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I done pretty much done a deep dive on the offensive line room, talked to a lot of people about it, and kind of got the state of the room. And I really, again, I'm not going to name names because I just don't believe it's right to dog on kids. But I think we've probably got 2 kids in that entire room that are on the probably can't play list. Everybody else could play. They just need a chance. And they're either going to play here at Ohio State or they're going to play somewhere else. But, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Generally a line, you might go 6 deep, 7 deep, occasionally 8 deep. But, you've had seasons where the starting 5 has started every single game the entire year. So It's not a position that people go down at. And I think a lot of guys just need their chance. And I think we've got a lot of dudes in that room, man. They're very well respected. And the guys that can't play kind of identify themselves relatively, early in the process, and they keep kind of, convincing you that that's the right choice when they go out there. And as I said, I think we've got 2 guys that would fall into that category, and everybody else is a can play. So not worried at all. You just can't wait to see them on the field and actually playing.
Yeah, I agree. You got to remember, and we've said this on this show because this is the most thoughtful Ohio State show by far, because we always point out the fact that Corey Linsley didn't start a game until his 4th season at Ohio State, his 4th. So he went the first 3 years of people saying he's a bust, he can't play, he's a scrub, not good enough, 3-star Ohio State, whatever, local kid. And he's turned into, not quite a Hall of Famer, but a guy who at one point was the highest paid center in the NFL. Got a huge deal with got a nice extension with the Packers, and got a huge deal with the LA Chargers. Started day 1 as a rookie for Aaron Rodgers. I remember his first game like it was yesterday, because he had to go up to Seattle, go to Quest Field, one of the loudest environments in the NFL, and he did great. He did fine. And he's a guy that I know Aaron Rodgers was upset that he lost, but Corey going into year 4 was a giant question mark, much like, you could say about Josh Fryer. You could say about, Zen. Zen's going into year 3 right now. But, these guys, they got to have an opportunity to play. And again, it's on Justin Fry and the coaching staff to get these guys ready, because in college football, that no matter how good you are at certain positions, guys are either going to declare early for the draft, graduate, or transfer. So you better always have that next, crop of guys coming in the bullpen, ready to roll. And that's part of the challenge of college football is you never know what's going to happen. And even still, even if you have Paris and Dewan, there's injuries that happen. Anything can happen in college football. In the COVID year, when Stud was our O-line coach, we literally lost our 2 tackles to contact tracing. So we had to start DeJuan Jones at left tackle and Max Dre at right tackle. And guess what? We did fine against Michigan State, up at Michigan State. Very complicated blitz schemes, and we locked them down. And we played fantastic football that day. So, I think that the benefit to being in the Big Ten is there's really about 2 or 3 teams you really have to be ready for defensive end wise in terms of their talent. And the rest of the teams, we'll handle them easily, in my opinion. You got to get ready for Michigan, got to get ready for Notre Dame, got to get ready for Wisconsin, maybe Penn State. But after that, man, we got 3 games before we play at Notre Dame. So these guys are going to have 3 starts under their belt. They'll be able to get graded and critiqued and fixed and techniques ironed out. And that's huge. I mean, that's like one of the things I love about the schedule this year is that we don't open at Notre Dame like last year when they had to open at our place. We get 3 games, so these guys get to go out in the shoe, play, be the man, be the guy that goes with the ones, get the butterflies, kind of calm down. You never totally get them calmed down, but the more games you start, the more comfortable you are. And this is coming from, I started as a redshirt freshman in '04. And, your first start, you're out there in front of everybody and you just, you have that nightmare of giving up a strip sack fumble that costs you the game or the quarterback getting hurt because you miss a block. And, but, once you realize that that's not how it's going to go and you're going to be fine, then, you calm down and you just play your game. So that'll be big for Josh and Zen out on the island. But like I said, I'm excited about those guys. TC Caffey, Paul, I think, TC Caffey, I think he's probably going to get some work this year. I'm not sure if he got dinged in the end of the season. I'm honestly not sure on TC Caffey. Whoever has any sort of pulse at running back that isn't being held out, like I think Trey and Mayan are, they're going to get some carries. They're going to get a lot of work. I don't know if Sonny is big enough to be a defensive end yet. I think that Nevada had a great comparison when he compared him to Micah Parsons, where he could maybe be an edge rusher. I don't know if you want him to hold in there as an every down defensive end and go against, DeJuan Jones as a run stopper, because he's still, he's a big kid, but he's not that big. You need a guy that's about 255, 260 at least to play D end. Sonny's probably 225, 230, maybe 235 at the top. I'm not sure how much weight he's gained this offseason, but he's still a pretty slight kid. He's ripped, but I don't think he's ready to be a D end. Nevada, your thoughts on Sonny Styles as a defensive end?
Well, I think, another comparison, and we've talked about this one before, is just Baron Browning, but, an NFL version of Baron Browning as opposed to Ohio State version of Baron Browning. But, look, I think guys like that can play all over the field. I mean, think of it this way. If you had to go with one prototype of kid for every position on the defensive side, are you going to go with 12, 190-pound defensive backs? Are you going to go with 12, 300-pound defensive linemen? Are you going to go with 12, 225, 230-pound linebackers? And I think it's, most people would answer the linebackers. And so, I've always wondered what a defensive line would look like. And, maybe you as an offensive lineman could probably, answer this question. But what if you were playing against, 5 guys on the defense, or 4 guys on the defense line that were just all Micah Parsons types, super elusive, super quick. How would that defense do against the 2023 offense?
I mean, I think it'd be really good. I mean, as long as he's got Micah Parsons pass rush. I mean, I don't know if 5 O linemen can block 6 Micah Parsons or 5 Micah Parsons. It'd be difficult. I mean, because he wins on the edge more than anybody other than Myles Garrett statistically. So it would be I think it would be really a devastating combo. I'd love to see it just because I think that he's a guy that literally can play anywhere. I don't know if he can hang in their corner, but the guy is unbelievable. When you said that, it reminded me of the meme where it's like pick 2, I don't know if you guys remember this, where it was like, 2 will defend you and the rest are coming to kill you. And it's got like 50 eagles, 10 crocodiles, 3 bears, 1 hunter with a rifle, 10,000 rats. Like that's what it reminded me of when you said if you could have, 11 Micah Parsons, 11 Jalen Ramseys, or 11 Myles Garrett's, like which one would you pick? But I just remember that old meme and it was kind of funny. I think Micah, and it's amazing because that was a kid that we passed on because he was kind of a turd on his visit. But man, I think he's a different kid. Yeah, I like Sonny at safety too. I'm gonna go with Goj on this one. Nevada, if you got the lineup card and you got to draw up who started in the secondary, namely, where would you play Sonny at?
It's a great question. I mean, I think right now, given where we're at, you have to play him situationally. You'd have to. I personally would bring him in as I put him at the jack position. I line him up on the edge on passing situations and have him rush the quarterback. I think it's he's too big to really put in a position where you're matching him up one-on-one as a safety. But the idea of him roaming around back there, a la like a Cam Chancellor type, big old guy at the safety position. I mean, I'd give it a shot. Certainly, give it a shot during the spring and see what happens, because that's when you can really test it against live action, see what the results are. But you have to get them on the field. For me, it'd be situationally, but if somebody else wanted to say they'd start him at strong safety, wouldn't get an argument for me on that one.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you play him. They use that nickel, up for the run. That's what I always kind of envision him as, is the nickel slot guy, because then he could affect the running game a little bit more. Because you got to imagine, Lathan's going to be the deep free safety, obviously playing the middle of the field. The bandit, the boundary guy. Well, I mean, you've got a lot of guys. You got Josh Proctor, Jihad Carter. I mean, they've got a lot of guys, a lot of spots. Mix and match. Kai Stokes, I think, has to play at some point this year doing something. Davison Igbinison was probably one of the biggest portal gets that we've gotten outside of the quarterback room. I'm just excited. I'm excited to see where they line these guys up, see where they experiment with them. I imagine the first day of spring ball, the old guys are all going to take the field together. So it'll probably be Proctor, Ransom, just as a seniority thing. I don't think you're going to trot Sonny out there first, but it'd be interesting to see how quickly and if the young guys rotate with the ones, because that's something that you always kind of have to notice as a coaching staff, is that you have to kind of put the old guys out first just to make sure you don't lose them mentally. Because if you put the young guys out first before the old guys, then their mind's already checked out and they're already out the door. So it's going to be fascinating, because I mean, we've got we're playing the 3 safeties, the 2 linebackers are kind of set. Do we do the jack as much as we did last year? Because it sounds like Larry Johnson hates the jack, which is interesting. I didn't think it was effective last year. I think we should just stick to 4 down and keep JT and Jack as our 2 defensive ends. I think that's tougher in terms of stopping the run versus the jack. The jack, in principle, looks hard to go against, but we just aren't very good at it. I don't know if it's the personnel or we don't rep it enough or what it is, but we gave up some explosives because it. I like this. Steele and Tommy are the Bash brothers. I think Steele and Tommy are going to have great years. I mean, those guys could both be first team All Big Ten type guys. Tommy, obviously, unless he falls on his face, his production is first team All Big Ten, likely first team All American, likely Butkus, favorite. But Nevada, what's your ceiling for Steele and Tommy? Like, how good of a duo could this be in Jim Knowles' defense with James Laurinaitis coaching them?
Well, I would just step into the Wayback Machine and go back 12 months from now, or 12 months ago, and say, what were we talking about, with Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers? I mean, Steele Chambers had played a handful of games, was a running back that had kind of moved over to the linebacker room in a pinch, and we weren't really sure what we had. And Tommy Eichenberg, we knew what we had in Tommy Eichenberg. We had a slow white linebacker, and that's what he was. And so I think now when you look back after the fantastic season that they had last year, and Tommy being the leader for the Butkus Award, the first team All-American candidate, Steele's going to get some recognition as well. I mean, the sky's the limit, and everybody that's been around Jim Knowles says first year's tough, second year they make a huge leap in terms of their understanding of the defense and understanding of the kind of the intricacies and the sophistication of what they're trying to do. And you've got 2 guys with that much ability and that much confidence. I mean, look how much confidence we have in them. That 10 times that is how much confidence they have in themselves and how much belief they have in themselves. So no, I think it's going to be as good a pair of linebackers as we've had in a while. It's going to be up there with the great groups. It's going to be up there with the Pepper Johnson, Spielman, with the Hawk, Carpenter. I mean, it's going to be up there with the group. It's a really special group of kids, and that's what's keeping some of these fabulous youngsters off the field, is the fact that we've got Tommy and Steele back, and it's good that we do, and I can't wait to see them in 2023.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see how much they rotate the other guys in too, because that's going to be something that's interesting. That meme I was talking about, just because Yeah, so I said this to my wife, and she was perplexed by it. So it's 50, 50 eagles, 10 crocs, 3 bears, 7 bulls, 1 hunter with a gun, 15 wolves, 10,000 rats, 5 gorillas, 4 lions. You pick 2, they will defend you, and the rest are coming to kill you. And that's what I thought of the Micah Parsons thing. I was like, because when he said if you had 11 Micah Parsons or 11 Jalen Ramseys or whatever, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, this is a good one. So that Nevada East spawned this. So if any of you guys have any input on this, this was a big meme from a couple years ago. You guys could toss it in there. But yeah, I think with the linebackers, it's going to be fascinating to see how we rotate CJ Hicks, because CJ is a guy, Cody Simon. You know, how do you keep those guys happy? How do you keep those guys rolling? It's something that, you know, I mean, CJ is probably thinking that, you know, this is his year to step in and play. And, you know, Tommy's back and Steele's, you know, basically entrenched at that spot. In terms of the DBs, we've talked ad nauseum about adding Davidson Igbinison from Ole Miss, how big that was. Nevada, Jordan Hancock, you know, does he beat out Denzel Burke? I mean, obviously, I think that you and I both agree that Davidson's likely going to end up being the number 1 corner just based on how he played last year. But what are your thoughts on the race for potentially the number 2 corner?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that people don't realize, you know, it was kind of a underrated story last year with Denzel Burke, is, you know, he had some injuries early on that kind of really, you know, hamstrung him and definitely, you know, limited him in terms of what his effectiveness. And at one point last year, he was really battling a serious confidence issue. And I think he kind of got his mojo back as the season went along. And I think people are going to see that this year. I think, you know, we forget sometimes that we're dealing with young men here. You know, when they get bombarded with social media, you've talked about all the distractions that go with being a high profile athlete at Ohio State. And these kids, you know, we talk about their mental health, and mental health manifests itself in a lot of different ways. You know, at the extreme edge, you've got the Harry Miller, you know, hey, I want to do harm to myself type of issues. But, you know, on a milder but, you know, serious scale, you've got kids that are going to be hit with, you know, social media criticism, with, you know, issues at home, and it affects their psyche. And as a defensive back, the last thing you can want to ever have is a lack of confidence. You've got to have the ability to lock out what happened before and kind of lock into what you're supposed to do on the next plays. And I think Denzel lost that for about, you know, a good part of the season, maybe 3/4 of the season. But the good news, got it back. And as a result, I think we're going to see more of the freshman Denzel Burke, just, you know, older, wiser, and ready to make a huge impact this junior season.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, he's a guy that, you know, played great to start his freshman year, kind of faded. Last year, the cornerback room was kind of a mess. So something that's interesting, and I don't think this has any bearing on anything, because Tim Walton did most of the Davidson Igbinison recruiting, and he was the big dog there. But Jim Schwartz and the Browns have not named a cornerbacks coach. I'm not saying that means anything, because they probably are talking to other people. But, you know, Tim was the cornerbacks coach for the Lions back in the day when Schwartz was the head coach. So, again, I don't think there's anything to that, but I did notice it too when I was looking over the Browns staff, just seeing who they'd hired so far. So again, I this meme is hilarious to me. So yeah, the gun in the Bears is really tempting. The Bears and the Gorillas is tempting. The 10,000 rats is kind of the one that I always kind of lean on, because I'm just like, 10,000 rats is a lot of rats. 50 eagles and a guy with a gun. I like that one too. Sorry, Nevada, I had to talk about the meme for another millisecond just because I think it's hilarious. Because it was like your 11 Jalen Ramseys, 11 Micah Parsons, or 11 Aaron Rodgers, or whatever. You know, which one do you gonna have protect you? For the offense, what do you want to see out of Brian Hartline this spring, Nevada? There's been talks about him taking over the play calling. I think that he needs to take over the play calling to take the next step in his development as a head coach. But that being said, Ryan Day just had the best game of his life calling plays against Georgia. So I'm potentially kind of hesitant for him to give it up, but I know that, and you've reported that he has been told to give it up. So what do you want to see out of Brian Hartline this spring?
Well, I just think, you know, what you're seeing with Hartline, though, is Hartline's kind of taking a broader look that, you know, before Brian was, you know, he obviously started as the GA, and just the wide receivers guy. And now, with Brian, Brian's observing the defense a lot more, getting engaged with guys outside of his position groups. And I think what you're seeing is kind of the maturation of Brian Hartline and the kind of his natural trajectory towards his ultimate goal of being a head coach. And so what I think with Brian, you're going to see more and more of him taking more of these kind of macro level positions. And do I think he's going to call plays? I know he's going to call plays. He will call plays. Will Ryan Day still have input? Will Ryan Day still have veto power? Absolutely. But Hartline's going to be calling the plays come fall. And I think you're going to see an expanded role for him that goes obviously beyond just coaching the wide receivers, which means, again, now you've got to have somebody step up and coach those wide receivers. And that's probably Keegan, who's going to have a chance to do that kind of the on-field stuff while Brian's up in the booth. So I look for Brian to take on an expanded role, a more macro role, and kind of a more global role. And that will not surprise me one bit.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing with Brian is he's got to make sure he knows the protections and how to balance and mix protections up. Because I know that he knows the route tree. I know he knows how to call a throw game. I think that guys that don't realize the cumulative impact of the running game can get in trouble and can get a little pass happy. And I have accused Ryan of that because I think that Ryan sometimes gets a little, he turns into Chuck at Charlie sometimes, or he just wants to throw 75 times a game. And, to help your young offensive line out, you got to run the ball a little bit. You got to let them come off the ball. You got to let them let some aggression out. You got to let them get some confidence, moving guys, hitting guys, banging guys, kind of wearing guys out. Because when you just consistently have to pass protect, it's a very passive motion. I mean, they always say pass blocking doesn't have to be passive, but it is. It's much more passive than run blocking is. And I think that guys that are throwing game oriented, like offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches, guys that generally call plays, they don't realize how much it matters when you can bang on a defensive line and how much it wears them out and how much they hate, getting pounded by double teams and getting drive blocked and pull and kick out and that type of stuff. Cause that's exhausting. You got guys, coming at you, pushing you back, putting you down on the ground. And you got to do that early in the game. You got to get the O-line comfortable, call some runs early. If you get 2 yards, don't can it forever. Because those 2-yard runs turn into 4-yard runs, turn into 6-yard runs as you wear defenses down. Now, the problem with a predominantly passing offense is you don't really wear a defense down at all because, you're not banging on them. That's why big running teams, as the games go on, they just keep beating the tar out of the D linemen, and those runs get longer and longer and longer because they're tired and tired of getting beat up. They're tired of feeling sore. Like when you go against a team that throws predominantly, like the D linemen don't feel nearly as sore as if it's a running team. That's why Urban hated playing Navy and Army and these option teams, because they cut and they down block and they do a lot of stuff that is miserable to go against. Running teams are miserable to go against, and we have to be, as an offense, we have to be miserable to go against collectively. We already are miserable to go against on the edge with Emeka and Marvin out there, but the interior of your team has to be miserable to go against as well. And that's something that I think Brian has to learn. Let Donnie Jackson come off the ball with Carson Hinsman, whoever the center ends up being, or Matt Jones. It's part of the reason, if you gave me the pen and said, fill your lineup card out, I'd go Zen, Donnie, I put Matt in the middle. Because I know Donnie and Matt could get a good hard double team right in the middle in the A gap when we really need it on a tight zone if we got to get a yard. I can trust those two guys, put Enoch at right guard and put Josh Farr at right tackle. And I think that's the lineup that we'll see during spring ball at some point, because I can't imagine that Enoch's not going to rotate in at guard with those guys, and they're going to bounce those guys around a little bit. But yeah, I think that you have to make the offense hard to go against. And that's something that the best teams do. The best teams hang their hat on being physical and tough and great pass protection, great scheme. I think if Brian Hartline wants a masterclass in what great pass protection and great pass protection scheme looks like, go watch the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles came into that game with 78 sacks. Third most in NFL history, behind only the 84 Bears, which was in first, and the 85 Bears, which is the team that everybody remembers and says it's the best defense of all time. The 84 team actually had more sacks. So the Eagles were third. And Andy Reid really did a fantastic job of running a bunch of different protections. Obviously, the offensive line played fantastic, and they were great technically as well. But you can make it a lot easier. I say calling pass protections in an offensive scheme is a lot like throwing pitches as a pitcher in baseball. Like if you just keep throwing empty protection where the tackles are completely man on man, it's kind of like throwing a fastball every time. Eventually, if you go against a good team, they're going to catch up to it and hit it out of the park, which is kind of what they do to your tackles. But if you mix in a changeup, a slider, a cutter, whatever, a curveball, then it's a lot harder to pinpoint what's coming. And that's what the Chiefs did protection wise. They pulled guards to help out. They had fullbacks in, they had tight ends shipping, and a unit that had 78 sacks leading up to that game and dominated a very good San Francisco 49ers offensive line. Actually didn't get a single sack. So, and that was with Pat Mahomes with a really bad ankle, re-sprained during the game. Not as mobile as normal. I'm sure he took a shot at halftime because he was able to scramble a little bit in the second half. But, that was a masterclass in how to help an offensive line versus a very overwhelming and the third best pass rush in NFL history, essentially. Nevada, we got a running back question. Do you think there will be an odd man out and someone will transfer after the spring game? And you don't have to name a name, but is there somebody that you think could be an odd man out? I mean, so we do have the deepest running back room I've ever seen at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. I think, inevitably you're going to lose somebody out of the running back room. You're going to lose somebody out of the wide receiver room. The only thing that's going to potentially keep guys in the running back room is, you've got guys like Trey and Mayan that are guaranteed gone as of next year. And, frankly, Alford hasn't done a whole heck of a lot to bring in guys behind him that are scary. So, that's the only thing that could cause guys to stick around is the fact that, this year it's the deepest wide running back room we've ever seen. Next year you lose a lot. Now we'll worry about that, and we can start flooding him out that 12 months from now on the episode called "Where Are All Our Running Backs?" But for right now, we're in good shape. I would expect one guy to leave, but that's probably up in the air. But I would look for certainly a lot of movement in the wide receiver room and probably a couple guys out of the offensive line room for sure.
Yeah, and again, that's just going to be natural. I think every major team, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, USC, they're going to lose 5 to 10 guys after spring ball. That's just the new normal because guys are going to look at where they're at the depth chart. And, like Bryson Shaw was a guy that I'm not sure if he made it through spring ball. I think he might have transferred right before spring ball. Or he might have gone right. I can't remember when he transferred, but he transferred at some point after having some practices with Jim Knowles. I think he might have transferred during spring ball. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a guy that transferred. I mean, when you looked at the reps and where he was a guy that started and had a pick in that Michigan game. And then he was down to the 2s and then the 3s and kind of on the outside looking into the rotation and transfers to USC and starts for him and actually played pretty well for him in the bowl game and against, Utah. And, again, guys, they're not all going to be transferring to Akron or Kent State. I mean, there's some guys that are going to be transferring to good schools to start and play this year. And I think that's how people are just kind of always monitoring the depth charts of other teams. They're talking to their friends that are on other teams. People saying, hey, like Teradja Mitchell is down at Florida. Will he play linebacker? Will he get significant time this year? It's going to be fascinating to see who leaves, where they go, and what they do after they leave. Because that's kind of the big thing is, it's not everybody that leaves is a true loss, but some guys are, but most guys usually aren't. But you want those kids to go play. I mean, those kids all sign up to go play somewhere, and they all want to go to the league. And the only way you go to the league is you have to play. Yeah, the Sonny Styles stuff is going to be wild because I can't wait to see how he does this year. Nevada, you got any other final thoughts? We can wrap this thing up a little bit early. It's Friday. I think that this is going to be a really good. This is going to be a great spring. Again, anytime there's a quarterback competition, it's always crazy. A lot of young talent. A hungry team. 2 losses here in the year. You can't help but be hungry and beat down a little bit. So I'm sure those guys will be taking out some violence on each other. But any final thoughts to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, no, I think Ohio State's made good use of the time. Obviously with the their acquisitions in the transfer portal, what they've done to kind of align their staff, get their things going, and one of the things that we've talked a lot about is how Ryan Day and Jim Knowles and the other guys have kind of utilized their resources within the coaching family, the coaching tree, the Ohio State coaching tree, their context in the NFL coaching trees to kind of get some enhancements and some tweaks and some additions to the Ohio State offense and defense because that's an underrated point of stuff that happens here during winter conditioning is these guys go to these other schools, go to these other programs, go to these other NFL teams and ask for help, and guys are more than willing to give it. And I think that's always been something that I found just amazing is that you can go up against teams that are competitors during the year, and you go during the off season and they're helping each other out. And I've always found that to be really interesting.
I do too. I got to do. This is a good question, Doge. So I can't leave you yet, Nevada. What are the odds we schedule USC or UCLA in a snow home game, a late November cold snowy game? Wouldn't that be amazing to see UCLA or USC come out to the shoe in the snow? We haven't had that many snow games in the shoe. Can't really remember that many. I know we've had some, but it's not as frequent as you think. I feel like we almost kind of dodged it. We've had some really cold games, like that Penn State game in 2017 was really cold, but it wasn't snowy. Nevada, the odds that we see USC or UCLA in the snow in the near future in the shoe.
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, we're going to be playing one of those teams on the road and one of those teams at home, just about every year. And that's why I'm so excited about, Big Ten expansion, the potential. If you guys remember, I don't like to crow with hey, we had it first stuff here, but we had it first on USC to the Big Ten before anybody had that. And, that I think that's kind of gotten forgotten in the shuffle. I mean, think about how cool that's going to be to have every other year to have USC or UCLA coming in and playing a game, and those games on the West Coast are just going to be crazy. They're going to be crazy pseudo home games for Ohio State, and potentially you throw Oregon and Washington into the mix as well, Notre Dame. Wow, it's just going to be some really, really good times, some great matchups, some matchups that we don't see very often. We're going to see with more regularity, and kudos to the entire Big Ten staff and to Gene Smith and everybody at Ohio State getting it going. But our home schedules are about to get really, really good. After this year, we're paying a little bit of a price with what I consider to be a bad home schedule. But after that, boy, those games are going to be epic.
I totally agree. I think that, for the West Coast Ohio State fans that live Vegas, Colorado, California, to be able to go to UCLA, fly into LA, go to SC, take that little short flight over there, check out the Buckeyes live. I think it's going to be fantastic. It'll be interesting to see if we ever have the Big Ten championship out west, if they ever switch it to SoFi for a year or they switch it to Vegas for a year, just to kind of keep growing that footprint, especially if we had a couple more teams, if we add Washington, Oregon, some of these schools that are rumored. Again, on BuckeyesScoop.com, we have a literal insider that we hired that is right in the thick of all the negotiations between the networks, between the conferences. We had to give him a name, so we named him the Oracle because we wanted to keep his identity secret. But he is in the highest meetings when it comes to breaking the TV stuff, breaking who's going where with alignment, commissioner news, obviously with Michael Warren going off to be the president of the Chicago Bears. He's got a big board for that. Really fantastic content because, again, it's just something that nobody else has. We like thinking of high-level stuff that people are really interested in. And, the future of college football is kind of paramount on everybody's minds right now because it's changing fast, and the Oracle's kind of at the forefront of it when it comes to breaking that news before it happens. Because the expansion stuff that we broke was just unbelievable, and Nevada was on it before anybody. What got us on? It feels like it was a year and a half ago almost, with SC and some of that stuff. Because I remember we did podcasts on it, and people thought we were crazy, and then it all happened. So it was. I don't think it was being a prophet. I think it was just having really good sources. So we're gonna wrap this thing, Nevada. Any other thoughts? Appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been a great show. Thank you, Paul Buckeye. I know you're always in here. Doge Dave goes. You guys are awesome. Hit that like button. Any final thoughts about it? We'll wrap this thing.
No, just I'm getting close to starting up. The most consequential and interesting spring football that I can remember in my time, following Ohio State. It's only a week away or 10 days away or whatever the heck it is, but it's not far. Can't wait. Let's get going.
Yeah, I totally agree with the quarterback situation. It is going to be absolutely crazy. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love interacting with you guys on these shows. If you guys listen to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, please click that like button. Comment down below. I want to hear where you're from. Shout out where you're listening from. Shout out your hometown. Write that in the comments below. Let me know, who do you want to see step up in the spring? I do that about every day, but like Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, so many names, Devin Brown. Where do you want those guys to play at? What are your big questions that you want answered by the end of spring ball and the staff? It could be, coaching questions. It can be personnel, players, the whole gamut. So fill me in. Let me know what you guys think. As always, we are on BuckeyesCoop.com 24 hours a day. It is the #1 Ohio State super fan community. If you are a super fan, if you are someone that just breathes Ohio State football 24 hours a day, we are the home for you because our place is always popping. It's like the best, the best restaurant you've been to, the best club you've ever been to, best hotel you've ever been to, best vacation you've ever been on. That's what the Scoop's like, because it is always popping. It's always exciting. We always have great content, fantastic members. We'd love to have you join us at BuckeyesCoop.com. Again, we are growing like crazy, and it's all thanks to you, so we appreciate you guys. I'm going to go jump on there right now. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a good one. I will talk to you guys soon. Go Bucks.